The Louisville Cardinals are currently top 15 in the net rankings, but they're missing one key ingredient that would help their tournament resume. You're locked on Louisville. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Thursday evening edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my sixth year covering U of L, fourth year hosting this show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network in the world. We've got a busy show planned for you today, a weekly mailbag segment. At the end of the show, many questions regarding Louisville's defensive coordinator search. What's taking so long? Will the Cardinals promote internally? And we'll discuss a potentially key option for the open DC job. Critical stretch upcoming for the men's basketball team beginning on Saturday. Louisville taking on Virginia Tech. We'll have the preview for that matchup coming up here shortly. But I want to start today's show by discussing the current bracketology, net rankings, and all that good stuff, and just sort of get a pulse of where the Cardinals are currently at in the metrics, where they are currently sitting in bracketology predictions. And you might think that it's too early to do that. I disagree. Next week is the last week of January. February 1st is next Sunday. February is going to fly by. Before you know it, we're going to be discussing conference tournament previews. So even though it seems like it's far away, we're about a month and a half from Selection Sunday, give or take. I don't know how many days, but I wanted to just sort of look at where the Louisville Cardinals currently sit with the net rankings, KenPom, Torvik, take a look at their tournament resume, where they currently sitting in bracketology predictions. Now, I know some aren't huge fans of bracketologists, but I do think it's cool for reference points. You get to see where Louisville's at and what they need to do to improve, what realistic improvement looks like. I will say this, even though where the Cardinals are currently sitting, I believe is favorable. Signature wins are the key ingredient that the Cardinals are currently missing to improve their tournament resume. Like, looking at the numbers, you can't really argue with it. I mean, the Cardinals are 13-5. They're 3-3 in conference play. If you look at the record and then also where they're ranked, I mean, they're 23rd in the AP poll. AP poll really doesn't matter for tournament resume. But looking at three key metrics, the net ranking, Louisville is at number 15. That's really good to see. KenPom, they're 16. The Torvik ranking, Louisville is 14. So you are right there in the top 20 in all three of the key metrics, which is extremely encouraging here in late January. You're 13-5. You've stumbled a little bit in conference play, but you're not dooming yourself. Now, an insane amount of urgency needed for not only this upcoming stretch, but early February. Like, things don't get any easier. Maybe that works against Louisville, but I also think that it helps as well, because last year, again, I also don't want to play the dangerous game of assuming what the tournament committee is going to do, because it's pretty clear that inconsistency is the only consistent approach that the tournament committee makes. Some years they value the net rankings, which, by the way, wasn't that the whole rationale about why the net rankings are a thing in the first place? So we could avoid inconsistency and bias. Isn't that the whole reason behind why we have the net ranking? Anyway, I'm not going to go too far off on a tangent there. But last year, Louisville ran through ACC play. They were almost perfect. The numbers really didn't care. Even when Louisville continued to win, it's like, okay, well, the ACC is that bad, so you're expected to. And you don't have the signature victories. Your best win last season was 2 times against Clemson. And Clemson ended up being, were they a 5 or 6 seed? One of the two. But the tournament committee made it clear to you that they didn't care about your net ranking. You were underseeded by the metrics, because the tournament committee believed that you weren't as good as the metric said you were because you didn't prove it. The good teams you played, you lost to. And even though you might not believe that that same rationale is going to apply in 2026, I just disagree, because you need the signature wins. And at the very worst, what you're doing is you're taking away any possible reason for the committee to dock you. You're taking away any possible reason for the committee to, quote unquote, underseed you. So if you have a good net ranking, good KenPom, good Torvik, you've also got signature victories. Well, I don't think that they have any rationale to drop Louisville further than where they should be via the numbers. Now, just because they shouldn't have any rationale or they don't have any rationale doesn't mean that they're not going to. Full transparency there. I also think it's pretty key that the Cardinals avoid any bad losses. Last year was more important because you had more of them on the schedule. Currently, looking at the upcoming games as it currently stands later on January 22nd, you have 2 quad 3 games, Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. And outside of that, the rest are quad 1, quad 2. So you don't have that many bad loss opportunities, and that's great. But the devil's advocate to that is you are facing a tougher schedule. 2 parts to this. More opportunities to lose games, but positively thinking, you have more opportunities to get those signature wins. You have more opportunities to improve your net ranking. Louisville is 3-0 in quad 2, 2-0 in quad 3, and 6-0 in quad 4. That's really good. The issue is they're 2-5 in quad 1. Their best win currently is against Indiana, who is 37th in the net. I would say that Clemson was higher than that when Louisville beat them last year, twice. So Indiana might have been ranked when you beat them, but at the moment, if that is your best win, you're kind of just asking the tournament committee to do what they did to you last year. So that's why signature wins are so critical. They're a key ingredient to improving your tournament resume, because after what I saw last year, Louisville lost 1 regular season game when 2025, the calendar year, started. They lost 1 regular season game, and they were rising up net rankings, not like significantly, but they were squarely in the mix for like a 5 seed or maybe a 6 seed at worst. You get dropped to an 8 seed, and the rationale was lack of quality victories. If you go into Selection Sunday with maybe a better net ranking, but still a lack of quality victories, you're asking for deja vu. So where do bracketologists currently have the Cardinals sitting? Well, ESPN Joe Lunardi currently has Louisville as the number 1 6 seed in the field. Their pocket is St. Louis. It's the East Regional. The 1 seed is Duke. The 2 seed is Purdue. 3 seed Vanderbilt. The 6-11 would be Louisville versus San Diego State. Vanderbilt versus Wright State is the 3-14. With Vanderbilt skidding, I'm not sure that they're going to stay as a 3 seed. As a 6 seed, I mean, you're kind of just expecting Louisville to win a tournament game there. San Diego State is one of those, I won't call them I don't think San Diego State, are they a mid-major technically? I mean, they're not a Power 5 team, but I mean, San Diego State's just one of those. I guess they are a mid-major. If Gonzaga is a mid-major, then San Diego State's a mid-major. But Lunardi currently has the Cardinals as a 6 seed. Now, CBS and On3 have Pat Kelsey's team as a 5 seed. And that's good to see because, well, I mean, it's basically reflecting the net rankings, right? I mean, it shouldn't really come as some sort of surprise. Now, these rankings were updated today at 1 o'clock. Louisville's a 5 seed. The 4 seed's Texas Tech, 13's Utah Valley, but the 12 seed's Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is one of the only, 3 teams remaining in college basketball D1 that are undefeated. That would be like a terrible 5-12 matchup. Like, will Louisville be expected to win that game? Yeah, probably. But talking about a giant killer, right? That's a Cinderella team at the moment. undefeated on January 22nd. Now, they've had some close calls recently, but still, that's a tough go. On 3, looking at where they have the Cardinals, I wish their article was different. It's kind of hard to find. You got to scroll all the way down, I think, is where they had Louisville at, if I'm not mistaken, right? Let's see. Louisville's the 5 seed in the West Regional, playing in Tampa, 5 versus 12. Louisville versus Yale, so they'd be playing an Ivy League team. The 3 is BYU, 14 is St. Thomas in the Summit League. Playing BYU, that's a tough game. They're very physical. They have AJ Devanza, who's a top 3 projected NBA draft pick. Rob Wright, Saunders. Like, you have a really good team at BYU. So, but if you're a 4, 5, 6, like, you're going to be playing pretty decent team, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, depending on who you end up drawing. Actually, you know what? I'm sitting there looking at the wrong line. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this is kind of confusing to me because I was looking at the wrong line. BYU's the 3 seed. So if you're confused, you're like, hold on, Louisville's the 5. Why is Louisville playing BYU in the second round if that's the 3 seed? You are totally right. I'm dumb. The 4 seed is Florida. 13 is Liberty. And Florida is playing better as of late. So it's another thing. Like, point still stands. The round of 32 game, assuming you do win the opening round game, it's going to be a challenging game if you are a 4 or 5 or 6, and even if you're a 3 seed. So, again, very much going to change. We're only January 22nd, but I find it useful to be able to kind of look through and see where Louisville is currently seated at in bracketology projections and where they are in the metrics, but it's pretty clear. Signature victories are needed. Now, I'm not sure. I would doubt a signature victory would come on Saturday because Virginia Tech is a quad 2 game. But this is an opportunity for Pat Kelsey's team to prove themselves ahead of a tough, critical stretch beginning on Saturday. We'll break down the Cardinals matchup against the Hokies when we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Tax season, it's upon us, guys. But it doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. TurboTax was a lifesaver for me last year with all the 1099s that I have with PA announcing, with podcast hosting, you name it. It makes my life really miserable when I go to file taxes. Well, instead of spending hours trying to figure out the forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online like I did last year. What I did was I uploaded my documents, I went about my day, and I got updates right in the TurboTax app. It saved me so much time and gave me real peace of mind knowing that an expert was handling my taxes. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day and for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. If you haven't already, guys, you got to check out the new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Louisville, which I know that you all are wanting. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. Go to lockedonlouisville.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Cardinals looking to begin this critical end of January stretch on Saturday with a W. They're taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Game time has been moved up, so if you didn't know, now you know. Louisville versus Virginia Tech will tip off at 2:15 on the CW network on Saturday. It is because of what seems like inevitable winter storm that the Kentuckiana and, well, really, I guess the further south you go, the more snow you're supposed to get. But There's supposed to be a lot of winter weather this weekend, so the University of Louisville deciding to move things up. They'll take on Virginia Tech, who's 15-5 and 4-3 in ACC play. Now, they started out pretty good on the season when they beat Virginia Tech when they beat Virginia in triple overtime on December 31st. They were 12-2. Well, since that point, it's been up and down. They lost 2 games. They beat Cal. They lost another one, and then they've won 2 games. So looking at the net rankings for Virginia Tech, this is, of course, a quad 2 game for the Cardinals. Virginia Tech is 49th in the net rankings. They moved up a couple spots. They are 6-0 in quad 4, 2-0 in quad 3. They're 5-2 in quad 2 and 2-3 in quad 1. Their best win is, of course, against Virginia, who they beat at home. Virginia did beat Louisville a couple weeks ago. They also beat Syracuse on the road, but they've lost to St. Mary's, to Wake Forest, to SMU. They lost to VCU on a neutral court. They also lost at home to Stanford, which the Louisville Cardinals did as well. Now, Virginia Tech is a team that, like the Cardinals, they're trying to strengthen their tournament resume as conference play continues. Virginia Tech, I think they play pretty similarly to Louisville. They score a lot of points. Defense is inconsistent. Like Virginia Tech doesn't score as many points as Louisville, and they give up more points than the Cardinals. Louisville gives up I think it's 69 points a game, if I'm not mistaken. 69.6. Virginia Tech gives up 74.1. Louisville out-rebounds Virginia Tech by about 5 rebounds per game. They record more assists per game. Blocks and steals are pretty similar. Now, Virginia Tech is, I think, a better three-point shooting team. They don't take as many threes as the Cardinals do, but when they do, they're respectable from the three-point line. 34% from behind the arc, but they're 164th in three-point shots attempted. Now, Louisville, according to the ESPN analytics, because the spread isn't out yet, Louisville has about a 92.8% chance to win this game, according to ESPN's analytics. Virginia Tech is a balanced team, but I think Louisville matches up well with the Hokies because the Hokies aren't necessarily a tall team. Like their leading scorer is Amani Hansberry, who's 6'8", 240 pounds, transferred from West Virginia. He leads the team in scoring with 15.5. He also leads the team in rebounding. I'm sorry, no, he doesn't. He is second on the team in rebounding with 8.6. Toby Lawal, who's 6'8", 215 pounds, averages 12.7 points per game and 9.3 rebounds per game. He struggled against the Cardinals last season. Now, they almost pulled off the upset last year at Virginia Tech. They're now going to be playing at the KFC Yum Center. Tech has 9 players. I'm sorry, they have 8 players who average over 6 points per game. 7 players who average over 9 points per game. 5 players who average double digits per game. Like I said, Virginia Tech they have a leading scorer. They've got that, I think, that duo, that really solid duo with Hansberry and Abdalas. I think it's how you say his name, Avdalas. I was going to say dynamic duo. They've got that dynamic duo, but truthfully, it's a very balanced attack. Like Lawal averages 12.7, Ben Hammond 12.3, and Jalen Bedford 10.1. Now, we don't know about the status of Michael Brown Jr. and Kenai Roots yet. The ACC injury report has not popped up yet. We don't know if it's going to happen on Thursday night or sometime during the day on Friday. But because Virginia Tech is more of a guard-oriented rotation, I'd like to see Louisville utilize their mismatches. I want to see Javon Hadley utilize a size mismatch in the paint and allow him to be a face-up 4, which I think is where he excels. I want to see Sanan DeFru go to work. I want to see it be made a point of emphasis to get the big man the ball in the paint and let him work. He's probably going to be the tallest guy on the floor a good portion of the game. Now, Christian Gerdak plays about 18 minutes per game, but he's 6'10". Frew is 6'11". Frew literally will probably be the tallest guy on the court most of the game. Antonio Dorn is 7 foot, but he averages 12 minutes per contest. So I want to see Louisville utilize their advantages, and that will come with size advantages down low. I know the Virginia Tech has some taller guys, but they don't play as much as Hadley plays. Frew's going to play a good amount as well. Defensively, close out on open shooters. If you give Virginia Tech open shots, they're going to hit them. They don't take a lot of them, but if they're open, they're going to take them. So positioning defensively, don't get in foul trouble, and start the game out strong. Those are the keys to victory for the Cardinals at this game. Limit offensive rebounds, but I like Louisville in this game to win over Virginia Tech. Score prediction will go 85-79. I think Louisville wins this game. Might be close for a good portion of it, or it might be one of those things where Louisville is winning by double digits late and then Virginia Tech ends up cutting the lead. But I think Louisville wins this game by 6 points, 85-79, and they pick up a quad 2 victory. So let's dive into the weekly mailbag to wrap out this week's edition, or this week's episodes of Locked On Louisville. There's many questions regarding the Cardinals defensive coordinator search. Questions keep popping up, and they're only getting louder. We'll attempt to answer them when we come back. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Carnation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment in the YouTube section below. Both are great ways to help this show continue to grow. We are on the road to 5K YouTube subscribers, getting there slowly but surely, almost to 4,900. So any person hitting that subscribe button would be awesome. But let's dive into the weekly mailbag. Most of the questions this week were surrounding the Cardinals defensive coordinator search. And full transparency, before we get into them, I'm as clueless as you all when it comes to a lot of these. But the first one is, do you think the Cardinals will promote internally at defensive coordinator? I do. So I do, at least to an extent. Like, at the very least, I think someone on staff is going to be made a co-DC. If someone else is brought in externally, it would probably be in that co-DC tag like we had with Brian Brown and Court Dennison a couple of years ago, like you have with Ron English, or like you had with Ron English and Mark Hagan. I could see the same thing. Like, you have one primary play caller, but someone has the co-DC title. Now, another question is, well, is Mark Ivey a realistic option, and how good of an option is he? I do think he's definitely a realistic option. He's my prediction to be a co-DC. Now, if he gets the nod as like the main guy, is he a worthy candidate to replace Ron English? I think so. Mark Ivey has been extremely loyal to this program. Of course, he was brought to the Cardinals program under Scott Satterfield, where he was known for his passion and his tenacity. Really good defensive line. Since then, he's kind of had a different role. But with Mark Ivey, you're going to bring the heat. You're going to bring the pressure. And I don't think you would change much with this defense, but there would be more pressure after the quarterback, pressure into the opposing backfield. So I do think Mark Ivey, of course, it's a risk. Anybody's going to be a risk at this point, because you're not going to go out there. I would be very, very shocked if the Cardinals went out there and hired a notable name to be the defensive coordinator. We're kind of past that point, because it probably would have happened already. At this point, the most likely scenario is that Louisville probably promotes someone, and if they do bring someone in externally, it's going to be someone to fill a co-DC role. The other question is, why is it taking so long? I wish I knew that. Louisville lost their defensive coordinator the last week of December, just days before the transfer portal opened. I said on the reaction episode that Louisville's got to get their ducks in a row. They've got to make a hire because the portal recruiting is going to depend on that. Like, guys are going to have to know who they're playing for to end up committing to a school. And I was proven very, very, very incorrect because, well, defense coordinator hire hasn't been made. And look at the guys you brought in. Look at the guys you kept. You kept Cleb Lubin, Antonio Watts, Tay Holloway, AJ Green, Stanquan Clark, TJ Capers. You bring in Tyler Thompson, Cohen Entringer, and multiple other defensive guys. So either A, you offered an extensive amount of money that they weren't getting offered anywhere else, or B, they kind of have a good idea of who's going to be the defensive coordinator. It could be one of those things to where if they are promoting internally, maybe there isn't really a ton of urgency at the moment because the guys on the team already know, and it's just a formality thing of going through the hiring process, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, all that type of stuff. But if it's external, what's the holdup? We thought that it might be a current NFL assistant coach, but now there's only 4 teams, and looking with the Rams, the Seahawks, the Broncos, and the Patriots, like I don't see coaches with ties to the Cardinals program or to Jeff Brom. So you would have thought that would already have happened. And if it is an external option, why is it taking so long? We're almost a month removed from Ron English stepping down. So I don't know. As to why it's taking so long, I'm not sure. I'm not judging, of course. I'm just saying I don't know why it's taking so long. Final question. Do you think Louisville needs to bring in more injury insurance next year for basketball? The past 2 seasons, we've had multiple red shirts, and in those past 2 seasons, we've had multiple key injuries. I will say this with the multiple red shirts thing this year, London Johnson isn't your normal red shirt. Like, he was a guy that basically is a member of the 2026 class that you brought in at the semester break that you were going to redshirt. Like, that happens pretty frequently. Not all the time, but it happens more often than you think. So you didn't come into the season knowing that London Johnson was going to be a member of this program. You had one guy that was redshirting, and that was Muhammad Kamara. Now, it is worth noting that with the new rule that you can have 15 scholarships, Louisville did not fill all of those scholarships. They left a couple open. Muhammad Kamara, decision to redshirt before the season. You had a healthy team before the season, and since then, Michael Brown Jr. has missed a month of basketball, and Kason Pryor still isn't fully back from his ACL surgery last year. He is playing minutes here and there, but not consistent nightly action at this point for the Cardinals in late January. So I feel like last year's situation and this year's situation are very different, but we can use the if all we want. Hypotheticals are just that. Well, if these players were healthy, it wouldn't matter, but they're not, right? That's the thing about it. Is like you could say, oh, well, if we had these guys here, if we were at full strength, like that's great if, but question is pretty valid. Like conversation is to be had. Does Louisville need to bring in more options? And this year, I'm not sure if it's like a depth thing because you've got depth. It's just a matter of guys stepping up. And if you're like, well, why didn't you go out and get another difference maker in the backcourt with Michael going down? Well, look at preseason. I mean, preseason, you talk about Conwell, McNeely, Woolley, and Michael Brown Jr. How do you realistically convince another top guard option to come to Louisville and fend for playing time? The center position, completely different conversation. I do agree. Even in hindsight, like I was mentioning this back then, I thought that Louisville should have added another big man to the roster when James Scott left. Yes, you went out, you got Vangelis Zougaris, but I thought you should have went out and got another guy because Zougaris, a huge unknown coming over from the international ranks. So But this year, it's kind of hard to say. I would like to see Louisville have about 13 to 14 guys versus 11 to 12, 12 to 13. I'm sorry, 11 to 12. Yeah. I would like to see Louisville utilize that. In worst case scenario, you've got multiple players redshirting. But again, it's tough because you only have so much playing time available. And this year, it's not because you don't have the depth. It's because you don't have guys stepping up across the board. So I get why the question is asked. I think the past 2 years, you have to really factor context into the equation. So that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. We'll be back here to discuss what happens in the Virginia Tech game early next week. Everyone have a great day, great week, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Go Cards.